المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We thank Allah the Almighty for making it possible for us to come and meet. It's my pleasure to meet with you for another session of this Quranic studies lesson. Today, as you can see, our topic is what? Asbab and nuzul, or reasons of revelation. Well, I may wish to ask you, what did you make of this title? Who will volunteer to answer that question? When we say asbab and nuzul, what do we mean? I have no doubt that some of you might have written something about it just a few weeks ago, right? So, what's asbab and nuzul is? What's asbab and nuzul? Yeah. Reasons of revelation. Well, this is a very short, or I can say broad definition of asbab and nuzul. But of course, when we need to go deeper and deeper, critically and of course technically, we can see it is far beyond that. But meanwhile, we can see asbab and nuzul arguably is one of the most important fields, or I would say topic in Quranic studies area. Why? Because
I think asbab nuzul is certain verse that has been sent down to the Prophet in order to answer a question or solving a certain situation.
Yeah. Good. That's great. So asbab nuzul, as I say, is one of the topics hijacked literally by feminist scholars, Muslim feminist scholars. As you know, those people who promote gender equality within an Islamic paradigm, they sought to use this as a base of their campaign. Okay? What they essentially appear to be advocating is that Quran, or I would say tafsir, literally is what? Is dominated by, the area is dominated by male. In other words, male over the centuries, what they did, they literally manipulated the text simply to oppress women. So they now decided to challenge the status quo by advocating gender equality within an Islamic paradigm. How? By reading gender equality into the Quran within a framework of what they call Islamic feminism, using this as their foundation. Okay, so they say that male scholars have not done enough to contextualize the meaning of Quranic verses. That is why males are incredibly oppressed virtually in every society, especially Muslim societies. So they now decided to introduce their new reading of Quranic texts by what? By introducing reinterpretation projects of the Quran. Okay, in my view, this is a gross representation of reality, because we have seen how male scholars produced enormous literature, but as we know, Muslim feminists have zero respect for male scholars. They were known to be critical for Islamic literature, especially the hadith. So they think that hadith is largely forged, and of course it was used as second source of interpretation of Islam, or I can say interpretation of the Quran. So most of the tafsir literature is what is being largely influenced by forged hadith. So today, inshallah, we're gonna have an intelligent analysis of this topic by critically reviewing some of the most significant aspects of the topic. First, we're going to critically examine the meaning of asbab nuzul, and after that, we will see its limits and, of course, scope. and finally we will highlight its significance. Okay? So let's see this. When we say asbab nuzul, as you rightly pointed out, asbab nuzul refers to what? Refers to circumstances, reasons for which, or circumstances upon which particular verse was revealed. Reason upon which, or circumstances for which, specific verse was revealed. But before we do that, let's quickly have a kind of preamble. First, we have to acknowledge that, generally speaking, Quranic verses are words of two types. We have first section, which was revealed virtually for no reason. This is, of course, most of the verses of the Quran revealed without words, for no reason, as I say. The second section entails those verses that were revealed as a response to some questions or incidents. And of course, this brings us to the question of asbab nuzul. So asbab nuzul itself can be divided into two. We have first category. It refers to the verses that were revealed to respond to particular incident or occurrence. For example, when the verse, when Allah the Almighty says, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, admonish your nearest kinsmen. This verse essentially was revealed to the Prophet to start inviting his nearest kinsmen to Islam. And they say charity begins at home. So he now ascended As-Safa, that very famous mountain in Mecca, and upon that he told his people, he shouted, "Oh people, hey!" When they came, okay, he told them, "Okay, you know what? Would you agree with me? But sorry, if I tell you now that there are some people out there coming to attack you, will you agree?" They say, "Of course, because you are never known to be a liar. So why not? You are Amin after all." So he now told them that إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ or إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. I am a warner for you, because there is a punishment coming for anyone who decided to reject Islam. So now, indeed, I am a plain warner to you of a coming severe punishment. Upon hearing that, Abu Lahab, his uncle, now says, أَلِهَذَا جَمَعْتَنَا, is it for this reason that you gathered us? تَبًّا لَكَ, like, may you perish. Okay, this is a strong insult, I would say, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Lahab, after saying that, he now made his way out of the gathering and went back. So Allah now the Almighty responded, because Abu Lahab slandered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the Prophet, Allah the Almighty now says, "Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin watab." That is this verse. Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin watab. It is not the Prophet that perished, but of course Abu Lahab himself, the one who perished. The verse reads, "The hand of the father of flame." That is the meaning of Abu Lahab. Perished he, no profit to him from all his wealth and all his gains. So what we now trying to point out, well, this is what a response to a specific situation. Second category relates to it. Those verses came to respond to specific questions asked by the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Words to clear some confusion regarding some issues and, of course, some problems, like we can see in the case of Al-Mujadala, that woman who came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asking him regarding the divorce by her husband. So now we will see that later. The verses, both verses that relate to this second category, usually contain ahkam, laws, as we can see. That provides answer to clear the confusion of what? Of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So, as I said, Khawla bint, no, not Khawla. Yeah, Khawla bint Tha'laba. That woman, basically, she was an aged woman. She spent spent a few years with her husband. So finally, he divorced her using pre-Islamic divorce of Jahiliyyah, that is al-zihar. He told her, "Anti aliyya ka dhahri ummi." This literally is a divorce. It's like words. Your back is like the back of my mother. So it's like words, like literally saying, "I divorce you." So she found the message simply unacceptable because after spending many years with him, so finally she found that her reward was just to be divorced. So she couldn't accept that. She now lodged her complaint to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereupon the Prophet, initially Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had no idea about how to respond to that kind because he was not, quite familiar with that type of divorce. He wasn't even sure whether it was divorce or not because it was just as they had. So he finally, he accepted it as divorce, but it was like irrevocable divorce. It was like a divorce that could not be managed. It was a final divorce for her. So when she came to the Prophet telling him that she was divorced, the Prophet told her, "Okay, now you can just go and be patient because nothing I could do." Because for him it was an irrevocable divorce. That is a type of divorce that could not be reconciliated. Okay, I would say. So, but having her insisted, okay, telling him that please do something because I'm exhausted. Please try to help me do something. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In those circumstances, Jibril alayhi salam basically came with the response that woman could be taken back to that man. Okay? In other words, the report of the divorce was not irrevocable. It could be managed. Now Allah the Almighty provides 3 solutions to reconcile. For example, to feed 60 needy people, or fasting for 2 months, 2 consecutive months, or freeing a slave. These are 3 options provided by Allah the Almighty to recover our kids. So now you can see how verses of the Quran came to work to fix the situation. In fact, Ibn Majah and Bayhaqi reported that that woman did not leave the I can say home or house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until Jibril came down with the revelation. Allah now the Almighty says, فَلَسَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلًا الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوُرَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. So this takes us to significance of asbab al-nuzul. Based on what we say, we can simply establish that word, asbab al-nuzul, critical are not only essential for understanding the Quran, but critical to establishing its words, its relevance, or its, I can say, compatibility with new world, as they say, or with the modern realities. So if we want to indeed establish that Quran is relevant to all circumstances, it's not something that is fixed to the situation of 7th century Arabia. So the only way to do that is by critically reading asbab al-nuzul and examining their context. Ibn Taymiyyah and Al-Wahidi categorically mentioned that it will be impossible to comprehend the meaning of any verse of the Quran without investigating the circumstances upon which that verse was revealed. So we can see that asbab al-nuzul is critical to understanding of the Quran. Secondly, it contributes significantly to better understanding of the verses of the Quran, especially those verses which appear more or less problematic. It also helps us to read the context of the verse. There is what they call pre-reading of the texts and reading after reading and pre-reading. Reading before the text and reading after the text. Reading before the text is contextualizing of the verses in light of the circumstances upon which they were revealed. So now, asbab al-nuzul, as we can see, it helps us to know the circumstances upon which the verses were built in order to help us fully appreciate the meaning. Understanding asbab al-nuzul is also critical to establishing the relevance. It is only by asbab al-nuzul that we will understand to what extent that the verses of the Quran are relevant to modern challenges and modern exigencies. So that is exactly what feminists essentially appear to be advocating. They say male scholars actually decided to decontextualize the verses of the Quran. That is to read the verses out of their context. So they read them without giving words, special reference to the circumstances and conditions upon which those verses were revealed. Well, we have, in detail responded to the argument of feminists elsewhere, so there is no point to repeat it here. But essentially we can say, in sum, that feminists are wrong side of history by showing zero respect to Islamic male scholars. We have seen quite a few thousands of them who have contributed in no small measure to preserve Islam, to reveal all its details in its true color without having to be biased or monopolized or distort, as I can say, any part of the text. So their argument is baseless, at best confusion. For example, let's quickly have a point here. We say that asbab al-nuzul help us to establish the relevance of the. It helps us to clear any confusion we had regarding what? Regarding some verses which are confusing. Allah the Almighty says, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ, to Allah belongs the east and the west. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you go, okay, whichever direction you turn your face, there is the presence of Allah. What does that mean? This apparently shows that it is not necessary to face Al-Qibla when, of course, superficial reading of the verse implies that it's not even necessary to face Kaaba, because Allah says, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, wherever you face, it's okay. But it is only by reading this verse on its context that we will get to know that this verse obviously implies, the confusion of this verse will be clear, because the verse, we will understand that one can observe his prayer towards any direction he wishes. But this confusion will be eliminated as soon as we understand that the verse was referring to a specific situation. For example, performing prayer during on a journey, for example, or supererogatory prayer, that is nafila. So nafila on a journey is not necessary to face al-qibla, or it relates to a specific situation when someone found himself confused regarding qibla. So if you go to a city and you find it difficult to locate qibla, you can face any direction, and at the end of the day your prayer is accepted. So it is not words. It is not general remark that it's not necessary to face al-qibla, but of course, only it relates to this specific situation. And Ibn Umar rightly points that the verse should not be read externally. That is out of context. It should be read internally. What does that mean? Because it was referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he prayed supererogatory prayer, that is nafila, on his camel. While he was proceeding from Mecca to Medina. So it was referring to a specific situation. Thus, it came to reduce the burden, especially when a traveler decided to perform nafila. So when you're on a journey, in your bus, on a plane, like in a coach, it's not necessary to face al-qibla. You can pray wherever you like. I think this is the final slide. We will just open floor now for discussion for the next presentation from brothers and sisters. And I wish you all the best. But before that, we'll respond to some questions regarding those points. Any question?
Okay, we understand that feminists tend to seek reinterpretation of some verses in the Quran.
Yeah.
And if we look back at where they come from, like why do they think they need to